Hello. In this video, we are discussing the Harlem Renaissance. We want to discuss sort of how America and the African American community got to this point in history by looking back at things that we've already talked about. In general, as we discussed, large African American communities had been forming in the North following the Great Migration. As African Americans are leaving the South and forming these communities in the North, we're seeing these large clusters of African Americans all over the country. And as you've also read about and researched, you know that this was not met with a lot of great enthusiasm and excitement. It was met with a lot of hate, a lot of vitriol, caused a lot of problems all over the country. However, that's not the only part of the story. It also is, there are some positive outcomes, and we see this largely and maybe most characteristically in Harlem, this community in New York, in which we have this outpouring of culture and this outpouring of society and growth and those types of things. And these neighborhoods that we see, like Harlem, are going to have this literary and artistic outburst. And part of that is because for the first time in African American culture following slavery, you're going to see the ability for African Americans to not only create their own work, but to own their own work and sell their own work, as opposed to maybe having to do it through a publisher who is white, or who owns the rights to their music, to their art, and things of that nature. And so because of this, for the first time, you start seeing this outpouring of African American art and creations, and we call what's happening in Harlem, in New York, the Harlem Renaissance. Renaissance being this Italian word, if you remember back from world history, for rebirth. And that is what it is. It's a rebirth of black culture that happens all over the country, but is centered in Harlem. It produces a lot of talented writers, such as James Weldon Johnson, who you'll look at a little bit later, Zora Neale Hurston, and Langston Hughes. We also see musicians such as Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, and someone who's from Tennessee, Chattanooga native Bessie Smith. So at this time, we see a lot of great works that are produced, many new movements, including the creation of jazz. And so what's happening in the North, in these cities, where we're seeing this outburst of culture, is miraculous to a degree. And there's all sorts of things that you're going to be able to look at in your next assignment to really look into people's work and try to figure out some of the major themes and try to understand what it is that they're saying and what it is that they're doing. And I'm going to model for you a little bit how to look at some of this literature, because while we're talking about this great success for literature and for music, it's also important to understand that African Americans still felt the weight of the world that was being pressed down upon them, and they expressed that in their art. So we're going to look at a poem by Claude McKay. It's called If We Must Die. This has become a very famous poem, especially dealing with oppression and dealing with hurt and dealing with sort of this balance of how do we have this success as a people, while also potentially understanding the pain and suffering that we see. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to model for you how to go through a poem like this. And for this assignment, you're going to then go through and reflect on this poem and show your understanding of it as you see it. In the next assignment, you're going to be pulling up your own documents, your own literature from the Harlem Renaissance, and attempting to answer some questions about it. So pay attention to how we do this, and then you are hopefully able to recreate this with the work of your own choosing. So let's look at If We Must Die. When we look at a historical poem, the first thing that we have to do is just read through it. And this is good for any text. So the shorter text, you can do this a couple of times. We're going to read it a couple of times to get an idea of what's saying. So If We Must Die by Claude McKay. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men, we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back. So when we're looking at this poem, and when we're looking at any historical poem, one of the things that's important to do after you've read through it the first time is go back through it and try to find if there are any text, any words that you don't understand, anything that you don't necessarily maybe get, or information that you don't fully recognize. So let's go ahead and look at this together. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned an inglorious spot. Now, obviously, without having you in front of me, I don't necessarily know which words maybe you don't understand. So if there's one you want to pause and go and find, that's perfectly fine. I'm looking at a few words that I think typically we either don't know or we don't use a lot in that sense, and so we want to look at that. So I see penned, and I'm going by stanza here, which is about 4 lines each. So hunted and penned in an inglorious spot. Inglorious, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our cursed lot. Okay? So let's in general look at the information that we have here. When we're looking at hunted and penned, when we look at penned, when we're talking about pen, we're talking about like a hog pen, somewhere where you keep animals. And so in this case, it is a trap, or we might even say cornered. Okay, so I'm thinking trap there. I am going to replace that and say cornered. I think that's probably a little bit better here, because you are trapped. The person, an animal in a pen is trapped. Maybe a person, we would say, more cornered, but either one could work here. Inglorious. When we look at anything that has in that sense, we're saying inglorious without glory, and so that is definitely a word there that we want to make sure that we have. So without glory, maybe bad, without any kind of honor, lacking honor. So I'm going to say without glory, and we can think of all of those words as well. And accursed is just cursed. It is a bad situation, and so that's probably what I'll put there. Bad situation. See if I can move this up a little bit. All right, so bad situation. All right, so they're making their mock. They are mocking our bad situation. Then we go down. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die. So again, I want to pause there. We're not necessarily going to go into the meaning of the word nobly, but if you're in a inglorious spot, right, then the opposite of that is nobility, right? Without glory, with nobility. And so instead of being in an inglorious spot, he says, if we must die, let us nobly die, with honor. Okay, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain, then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. So most of these, I think, probably we understand, but I want to make sure that we get exactly what they mean in this sense. So I'm going to look at defy, and I'm going to look at constrained. So if I'm looking at defy, that is disobey. All right, something we're going to go against the norm. We're going to go against what they're asking us. We're going to disobey. He says, even the monsters we defy shall be constrained, and constrained is the same as forced. So we're looking at constrained, and we're looking at forced. So even the monsters we disobey shall be forced to honor us. Look at that theme again. Without glory, talking about nobly, with nobility, with honor. and then honor us though dead. Okay, so then we've got O kinsman. O kinsman, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? I think most of that we probably are common words, and we'll talk a little bit more about maybe the meaning of those here in just a second. But let's look at kinsman. Kinsman, kin is family. It is people in the same situation. And so whereas it's not necessarily talking about family here, I do think that it is to a degree talking about it in a general communal sense, like a community. I think of this as like brothers. You might see like brothers in arm, or when you think of the word I'm looking for, not brethren, sorry. Okay. When you look at the like maybe nobility, when we're talking about knights and lords and things of that nature, they might use the term brethren. And of course, in the community, a lot of times African Americans will refer to each other as brothers and sisters, as this family community type thing. And so, oh kinsmen, oh brothers, oh brethren. I'm not spelling that right. So, brethren. Okay. We must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men, we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back. So when you're looking at something like this, and you're starting to note all of the information that's in it, and you first read through it just to kind of get an idea of it, then you're going to read through it again and see what it is that you don't understand. And now let's go back and try to assign meaning to some of the phrases that we do get, but what does that even mean? All right, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go through again, but this time I'm going to do it in a different color, and this color is going to represent essentially phrases that we know what they mean, but we need to apply what they mean in the context of this poem. So, for instance, if we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in a glorious spot. Right? We know what hogs means, and so we don't necessarily need to write that out. But hogs are typically an animal that are treated very poorly in terms of the way that they are kept and used for slaughter. Right? They are bred and used for slaughter just for that purpose. And so what he's saying is, let's not be like this, poorly mistreated animal that is here just for your amusement, just for your satisfaction and death. Hunted and penned, trapped, we said, cornered in a bad situation or a spot that is without glory. While round us bark the mad and hungry dogs. And we could talk for a while about, sorry, I want to do that. So while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, I'm going to use a different color for mad and hungry dogs. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. But who is it that we're looking at? While round us bark the mad and hungry dogs. This is, the dogs on the farm with hogs that are like keeping the animals in line. In this particular case, if we go back and say hogs, right, obviously goes with African Americans. Again, if we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in a glorious spot, while round us, all of those relate to the same thing. Bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their... Sorry, again. Gotta remember to change colors. Making their mock. And that would be at our accursed lot. So you can kind of see the connection of the words. If we, hogs, while round us, making their mock at our accursed lot. Or is he saying the mad and hungry dogs are making their mock at our accursed lot? Okay? If we must die, let us nobly die. so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. But we skipped over a couple of things there in terms of trying to identify what that means. Our precious blood may not be shed in vain, right? When we talk about in vain, and we could go back and maybe that's a word that we need to, or a phrase that we need to define, in vain is for no reason, for no purpose, right? Dying just because. Let it not be for that. Let it be instead with honor, so that even the people that are doing the killing will have to honor us, right? In vain, that even the monsters we defy, and when we talk about the monsters, well, who are the monsters? We hopefully can identify that they're the same as the mad and hungry dogs. They're making their mock at our cursed lot. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. Right, so hopefully you see the connections of all these things. When we're looking at kinsmen, and I could also take kinsmen and highlight it in this color, but it's already highlighted yellow, so I don't want to go over that. But, O kinsmen, we, it's the same. Talking to the brethren, we must meet the common foe. Who's the common foe? It's the mad and hungry dogs. It's the monsters we defy. And so we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. For their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back. So again, if we're looking at identifying those, the murderous, cowardly pack is this same group, the mad and hungry dogs. So let's define these two groups, and then we'll put it all together and try to identify what it means. If we must die, let it not be like hogs. He's talking about it, if we assume from Claude McKay's perspective, who is an African-American man writing this, if we must die, let it not be like hogs, while round us, making their mock at our, if we must die, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood, so on and so forth, right? As we see all of that, all of those, and you see that highlighted in pink, are African Americans. He's talking about the plight of African Americans. He's talking about the issues that African Americans face in the black community at that time. Then, if you look at the blue highlights, you're going to see a different group. While round us bark the mad and hungry dogs. This is that group of people who are waiting and keeping African Americans pinned or trapped or cornered without glory, who are making their mock at our cursed lot. They're the monsters that we are going against that are going to be forced to honor us, though dead. We must meet the common foe. The common foe. So who is the enemy? He's very clear. Our family, our community, our brethren are fighting against one common foe, the mad and hungry dogs, the monsters we defy. For all of their 1,000 blows, for all of the destruction, the death, the killing that they're doing, we are going to come together and fight against them, who he defines as the murderous, cowardly pack. So, if we look at the context of this, and we have to look at this through history, we look at the Red Summer of 1919, we look at the race riots, if we look at the police brutality that he is talking about, when he's saying this, it's pretty clear that who he's talking about are a couple of groups of people. Probably the police who are, he believes, the mad and hungry dogs, who are making their mock at their cursed lot, who are trying to keep them in line, who are cornering them in this bad situation, who are the monsters that they defy. They're supposed to obey them, but they defy them. They disobey them, right? And so it's probably the police. But I would say it's also to take it a little bit further. The murderous, they're the ones doing it. Cowardly pack is also the citizens in those race riots that we see that are fighting African Americans. Even take it further than that, it's probably the citizens who are not standing up for them, who are not saying that what they're seeing is wrong. And so he's probably talking about that. And then I would take it even further and say the murderous, cowardly pack, the monsters we defy, the common foe, mad and hungry dogs, all of those. I would say that it also includes people in who are people of color, who are in the black community, who don't want to stand up potentially and fight back, who agree with them, who are on the side of that mad and hungry dogs. Right? And so that's the group. Those are the two groups. African Americans who are being pinned and cornered for no reason, without glory, in a bad situation, who are being killed. And we see that that's happening. You know that that's happened because you've already looked at the Red Summer of 1919. So you know that that's happening then. Right? That's what he's talking about. He's looking at that. And then, on top of that, they're saying that there is a group of people who are potentially looking at all of these different things and realizing that something bad is happening. And you also have this group of people who are fighting against African Americans. So you have the group highlighted in pink that are African Americans, that are people of color who are being killed, in Claude McKay's mind, needlessly, as we see in the Red Summer of 1919. And then you have the other group who, in his mind, are probably, just based on what we know about the time and what we know about what's going on, probably police officers, white citizens, and people who are on the side of that death and those types of things. So let's look at all of this. And this is what you'll do when you're looking at your own document. You may be able to do it a little bit quicker. But you're going through your own poem. You're going to read through it just like we did. You're going to go back and you're going to identify words that you don't know. And then you're going to go back again and try to put meaning to phrases whether you know them or not. And so in this case we've done that, but now we have to put it all we have to put it all together, and we have to hopefully be able to identify the correct full meaning of what Claude McKay is saying. If African Americans must die, let it not be like this dirty animal that is hunted and then captured and cornered in a location without any kind of glory or honor, while all around African Americans are barking the mad and hungry dogs, police officers, white citizens, who are mocking their bad situation. If African Americans must die, if they have to die, let African Americans die with honor, with nobility, so that African Americans' precious blood is not being shed for no reason. Then even those police officers and white citizens that we disobey, that African Americans disobey, even they will be forced to give us honor despite the fact that we are dead. O brethren, O family, O kinsmen, African Americans, together, we must rise up against the police. We must rise up against the white communities that are killing people in 1919. Though far outnumbered, though there's more of them, let African Americans be brave. And for all the things that they've done to our community, let's deal one death blow. Right? Not necessarily death, right? Not necessarily that, but to stand up and fight back, right? And we'll see that in a minute. What though before us lies the open grave? What do we have but death to look forward to, right? We're going to die anyway. Let's die with honor. Like men, African Americans will face this murderous, cowardly pack of, again, police officers, white citizens who are fighting against them. Pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back. So this is a pretty radical movement. It's a pretty radical idea to stand up and fight again. Now, he's saying it's really not that radical. We're going to die anyway, right? They're killing us anyway. We might as well die with honor, so hopefully there is some type of change. This is an early call for this type of movement that we see throughout the 20s. A lot of times when we're taught about the civil rights movement, we're taught that it just came out of nowhere in the 50s, and then it happened with bus boycott and all of those different things. And that's not the case. We know already that people have been fighting for rights for centuries. But we see even post-Civil War that there are all sorts of organizations doing that. Claude McKay is another piece of that puzzle, and we'll see how it continues to build until we do get to the Civil Rights Movement. So you see that in this poem, and a lot of times we see this today because it shows us a couple of things, this poem does. It shows us the anger that people felt despite the beauty and the greatness of the Harlem Renaissance. And when you're looking for your own assignments, I encourage you to look for some of those things from Langston Hughes that are more positive, and from Zora Neale Hurston that talk about the Black experience. Why? Because I think that you're going to see a lot of information out there. You're going to see a lot of beauty in the African American culture. So hopefully you'll be able to find that. But also don't forget that it's not just that celebration. It's a recognition of the pain that the African American community felt, and it's used a lot today to represent that time. But it's also come back a little bit recently as a lot of these same issues have kind of creeped up time and time again since then. And so this is that early movement. Is something you could really get into to talk about the time period, the Harlem Renaissance, and things that are going on. So go ahead and complete the assignment. You'll be looking at more poems in this assignment. I'll also ask you to reflect on this one just a little bit, and then of course in the next assignment you're going to be able to explore on your own and find some other resources that you think that you like and enjoy to talk about and to analyze in the next assignment. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you have a wonderful day.